Ever since Disney announced that a continuation series of Monsters Inc. titled Monsters at Work would come to Disney Plus, I've been hesitantly excited for it. Monsters Inc. is almost in the top 5 of my favorite Pixar films, and most of it has to do with just how hilarious the movie is. A sitcom-style Monsters Inc. show on Disney Plus sounds like it has potential to be great. However, I feel like the place they left Monsters Inc. at doesn't have much potential to grow. That's why I feel like an actual sequel of the movie wouldn't really work. For a good period of time, I was convinced that Disney just straight up forgot about this show because it was supposed to come out in 2020, but then everything got delayed and they never gave us an update on the status of this show until like a year later. Alas, the show did indeed come out in July on a weekly basis. Here are my thoughts on the first of many Pixar Disney Plus shows. Okay, wait. Before I continue, I need to experiment. You see this graph? Make it look more like this, please. I don't usually do this at the beginning of my videos, but I want to see if it actually makes a difference. Please subscribe. If you like Pixar content, I have a lot of it for you. Okay, shutting up now. Anyways, video continuing. One thing we didn't get to see much of in Monsters Inc. is the transition from scream power to laugh power. They just kinda did a time jump after Waternoose got caught in 4K, and then boom, now they run on laugh power. It didn't feel very developed, and it almost felt like a parody of the super clever concept that thrived in the movie. But you couldn't really blame them for it, since it was at the very end of the movie, and it just kinda made sense for something like that to happen. Regardless, this series shows the gruesome and challenging change from scream power to laugh power. It shows all the power outages that happen.
Need to figure out a way to generate more laugh power. Suggestions?
How about a laugh extractor?
Too soon, Fungus.
All the devastated scarers who are out of a job now. Heck, Mike Wazowski even had to start a comedy class at the end of each episode because not enough people were funny. It takes this new concept just as seriously as the scream power concept, which is such a relief because that was something I was really worried about before the show came out. This show overall feels very faithful to Monsters Inc. There's a bunch of references to both movies in this show, and most of them go under the radar unless you've seen them recently. Or you're like me and all you do with your life is study Pixar movies. Like, there's a whole subplot about how the characters find out that the abominable snowman was banished because he discovered the scream extractor, which seems like a much more plausible explanation than what they gave us at the end of Monsters University. It's clear that they took a lot of inspiration from the deep corners of Monsters Inc., which is really admirable to know.
Fungus, I got a really nice car. You let me go, I'll give you a ride in the car.
Thanks for keeping me on, Mr. Wazowski.
No problem. But you missed out on a ride in my car.
Oh, hey, and we get to see all the old characters that we love, like Mike and Sully and Fungus and Randall. Wait, no, Randall kind of died. And Rose is in this show. I think they actually did a pretty great job at using these characters. By no means are they the focus of this show, but they ended up being in just about every episode since people want to see Mike and Sully. I sure as heck want to see Mike. I freaking love that guy. Overall, as a continuation of Monsters Inc. and as a placement in the Monsters world, this show passes all the tests. No one feels out of character, nothing feels out of place, everything works very well here, which adds a lot to my enjoyment to this show since I already love the Monsters universe anyway. But the main focus of this show has to do with an entirely new batch of characters, the Monsters Inc. facility team. The main course of the meal that is Monsters at Work is this sitcom-like group of monsters who work together to do maintenance on stuff. We've seen this many times before. An average normal person gets thrown into a group of weirdos who he has disdain towards at first, yet slowly begins to appreciate over the course of the season. Each episode involves Tyler, the protagonist, doing something for his own personal gain at the expense of the Miffed group. This helped Tyler develop into a much more caring and better character by the end of the show, but it also made him seem like a giant a-hole a lot of times. And again, this is all necessary because by the end of the series, Tyler grows very attached to the Miffed group. But for someone who was set up as the protagonist at the beginning, it just felt very odd to see him getting a whole new bowling team because Miffed isn't good at bowling, or yelling at Val for claiming they were in the same class together at MU. Like, I don't know, 4 episodes in, I was really hating this dude and it didn't look like it was getting better. All the other characters are very likable, however. Val is bubbly and friendly, Cutter is chill and is probably hiding one of her husbands in her basement.
This is how I caught my second husband. Impossible to escape.
How to get out?
He got out?
Fritz is the childish but super nice boss who puts everyone's needs before his own. Now that I think about it, he's a lot like Michael Scott, just like not a psychopath. And Duncan is the one aggressive one who's obsessed with stealing Fritz's job. I guess he's supposed to be the antagonist of this group, but I don't know, he's pretty funny to me. Overall, this is a pretty solid group of characters that works perfectly fine for a Monsters Inc. sitcom. There's nothing too incredible that happens with any of the character arcs. Everything is pretty simple here, which is kind of a shame considering they're the main focus of the show, but them bouncing off each other with comedy works pretty well most of the time. Okay, coming from a movie that is one of my favorites of all time for its killer jokes, this series has some big shoes to fill with regards to its comedy, and I can't really say that it's a disappointment. You're kind of getting a mixed bag with the comedy style in the show. It's either the basic sitcom type where the characters do some quirky shenanigans, or it's some out-of-the-blue, borderline surreal type humor, similar to Monsters Inc. Like in the episode where they bring back Adorable Snowman, voiced by John Ratzenberger, Tyler makes the claim that Adorable is his dad, but then he runs into his real dad, who is also voiced by John Ratzenberger.
I just need to drop off my son's lunch. Hey, you sound familiar. Wait a minute here. They're just using the same actor over and over. What kind of a cut-rate production is this?
Honestly, that was probably the funniest episode in my opinion.
I enjoy reading an open mail. Makes me feel like I have actual friends.
Oh, yeah, no, that's very interesting and most likely illegal. But
There's a really funny joke in one of the episodes about Mike and Sully being overpaid CEOs.
Sully, you're not thinking like an out-of-touch, overpaid CEO.
That one made me laugh, like, really hard. Rose did a pretty good job as a substitute for Roz, but I don't think there were enough scenes with her and Mike together because that's what honestly made Roz so great in Monsters Inc.
I'd go.
Also, I am in shock that there is not enough discussion about Blue Mike Wazowski. Right at the beginning of the 4th episode, he just shows up and no one questions how or why another one exists. Okay, Gary as a character isn't really funny, but I was bewildered by his appearance and felt like I needed to mention it because I was dying when he appeared on my screen for the first time. I'd be lying if I said the comedy in this show was anywhere near as funny as Monsters Inc., but much like how I think this show is faithful to the universe of Monsters Inc., this show is also faithful to the comedy. So overall, this is actually a pretty cool show. The weakest points, unfortunately, are with the Myth team, who happen to be the main focus, but this feels like a very well-written and fun thing to binge if you've got some extra time. I'm gonna give this show a low 7 out of 10. I know I said this at the beginning of the video, but please subscribe. It really helps out a lot. I'll see ya in Radiator Springs.